Hey everybody, it's Gary Mears. It's good to be with you. Welcome to spring. We're in the daylight savings time is upon us. I've got my green sweater on in honor of St. Patrick's Day today. 2 weeks from now, we'll be in the middle of Holy Week. We know on Friday of that week, Jesus was tried, convicted, tortured, and crucified. The night before that, Thursday night, is the night of the Last Supper, and that's what I want to talk about today. So it's Thursday night, the night that Jesus was arrested. He's with all of the apostles in the upper room, all of his friends and closest companions, even Judas who would later betray him, is there among them. And they're all together, and it's time for dinner. Knowing what was going to happen the next day, Jesus gets up from the table, takes off his outer robe and wraps a towel around himself. He pours water into a basin and goes around the table, individually washing the feet of all the disciples who are gathered there. When he gets to Simon Peter, Simon says, "No, Master, you won't wash my feet." And Jesus says, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but you'll understand later." Again, Peter pushes back and says, No, you'll never wash my feet. Jesus says, if I don't wash your feet, then you can't be a part of what I'm doing. Well, then Peter says, wash not only my feet, but wash my hands, wash my head, wash all of me. Jesus says, no, one who is bathed needs only to wash their feet, for the rest of them is already clean. After he washed their feet, Jesus put his robe back on and sat back down at the table. And he said to them, "Do you know what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's who I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, can wash your feet, then you ought to also wash each other's feet. I've set an example of what you should do for one another." So again, it's Thursday night. Jesus is with all of his friends. He knows what's going to happen the next day, and he wants to send one final message. He wants to make a big impression, one that will last beyond his crucifixion the next day. And what does he do? He washes their feet. Peter doesn't get it. He seems respectful at first. He says, "No, Lord, you don't need to wash my feet." But when Jesus ultimately says, "If I don't wash your feet, you can't be a part of what I'm doing," Peter then goes overboard the other way and he says, "Well, then wash my head, wash my hands, wash all of me." To which Jesus, in essence, says, "No, I'm going to do for you what I did for everyone else." And that's kind of the point. Jesus then sits down at the table and he explains to the group in no uncertain terms what he has done. If I, your Lord, can wash your feet, then you must go and wash the feet of each other. I've set an example for you. It's a metaphor. He doesn't mean that they should spend the rest of their lives washing each other's feet. It's a metaphor, meaning that they should spend the rest of their lives loving each other, helping each other, living with humility, thinking of the other first. And this is where the Christian faith gets hard. We're told to go and wash feet. Not an attractive idea. Of our closest friends, maybe, but even that doesn't sound great. But then he goes farther and he says we're also called to wash the feet of those who oppose us, those who don't love us, those who are even our enemies, just as Jesus washed Judas's feet. Judas, the man who would betray him later that night, leading to his torture and death. The night before, Jesus washed his feet. In Luke chapter 10 is the well-known story of the Good Samaritan. In the context of explaining to a man who'd come and asked him, in the context of explaining to that man what it meant to love your neighbor, Jesus told this story. A man is on the road to Jericho, and he gets taken on by robbers who steal everything he has, beat him nearly to death, and leave him naked by the side of the road. A priest comes along sometime later, and the priest crosses by to the other side of the road, ignoring the man, and just keeps walking. Shortly thereafter, a Levite, a member of the tribe of Levi, in that context, in those days, the Levites had special religious status, which meant they were a very high-ranking tribe among the 12 tribes of Israel. Anyway, a Levite comes along and behaves very much like the priest, crossing over to the other side and continuing to walk. But then a Samaritan comes along, a man from Samaria, the sworn enemy of the Jews, and the Samaritan takes pity on the man. He bandages up his wounds and then takes him to a nearby inn, where he tells the innkeeper to take care of the man and says, whatever the costs are, when I come back, I'll pay you for whatever the costs were. Jesus then asked the man who had come and asked, he said, which one of these people do you think acted like a neighbor to the man who was beaten and left by the side of the road? The man answers, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. This call to love our neighbors, this call to wash each other's feet is a major ask. It can be inconvenient, it can be expensive, it can be infuriating, as we're forced to swallow our pride and love those who don't love us, love those who act contrary to us or even in opposition to us. Yet that's what we're called to do. And wouldn't the world be an amazing place if we actually lived that way? Not to score points in some great divine scorebook somewhere or to earn God's love, but to do so from gratitude. From gratitude that God loves us, from gratitude that we're called to love each other, and for gratitude because we're capable of loving and helping each other. Instead of waiting for the world to become a more fair, a more just, a more loving place, why don't we have that start with us? Because you see, on the night that he was betrayed, on the night that before Jesus was tried, convicted, tortured, and crucified, Jesus washed his disciples' feet, even Judas's feet. And that's the lasting image, the big final impression before the crucifixion that Jesus wants to make upon his disciples. He washes their feet and then tells them to go and do likewise. I hope you've enjoyed this short message. If you have any questions or concerns, or you disagree with my interpretation of these passages, or you have any comments at all, I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, it's great to be with you. Have a good week, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.